Hey guys, just before we get into this video, I just wanted to mention, I'm new on YouTube. Well, new enough. I've been doing it for about a month on my other channel, but this channel is obviously, this is going to be the first video on it. So if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. I'll just say it off front, just in case, you forget or something. So please consider liking and subscribing. Thanks. And now let's get into. In literature, there's a concept called the death of the author. It's a philosophical theory that basically says that once a piece of literature is like published and out there, it takes on its own like personality and being, and it can't be related back to the biography of the person who created it or like events that happen. A recent example of the death of the author being put into effect is J.K. Rowling, where when she started coming out with a lot of transphobic tweets and stuff, a lot of fans of hers and a lot of fans of Harry Potter uh, were kind of like going through this phase where they were like, oh, how can I support the books without supporting the author? And that is death of the author. So basically, it's an idea whereby you separate the art from the artist. It's a very fancy way of saying that. It has nothing to do with this video at all. I just think it's a really cool concept, and the term is close enough to the title of the video that I'd get away with talking about it for a quick minute. Uh, so, anyway, we're talking about Big Mom today and the death of an emperor. So, today we'll be discussing up to chapter 1040 of the manga. And so, if you haven't caught up yet, pause the video, go read every single chapter without stopping once or sleeping at all or eating or anything. Just read nonstop until you're up to date, and then you have my permission to return to the video. Now that you've read it all and are back, let's get into it. Do I think Big Mom is unalive? No, I don't. And I think she'll be back in a future Elbaf arc, which is definitely happening right after Wano, and I think she'll be back in it. Like, it's not just Cope, I swear, there'll be an Elbaf arc. This video, though, I'll specifically be covering Big Mom and her kind of philosophical death from three different angles, because there's three different ways to look at Big Mom as a character. Number one is her reputation in the world of One Piece. Number two is like her actual character, like how she is in person, and number three will be like her like reception by the community and how the community likes to portray her in when talking about her outside of the actual story. Uh, so what's the point of this video if it's called Death of an Emperor and I don't actually think that said emperor is dead? Then, well, I have another quote for you. This time it actually relates to the video. So, an old man once said, when do you think people die? When they are shot through the heart by the bullet of a pistol? No. When they are ravaged by an incurable disease? No. When they drink a soup made from a poisonous mushroom? No. It's when they are forgotten. And that, of course, is attributed to Sakura Gandhi. And this is how that quote ties into the video, as I believe as a result of people kind of forgetting who Big Mom is and downplaying her due to how her actual character is and how they thought her character would be based off her reputation and how she has been during the raid on Onigashima specifically, that the One Piece community has kind of forgotten Big Mom, so to speak. And so she has not literally but philosophically died in the story. And that's the thesis of this video, that the fandom has basically killed Big Mom, even though she's still around and still a present threat. So, who is Big Mom? Well, Big Mom, real name Charlotte Linlin, is, the only female Yonko in One Piece. She's had a big role to fill from the start of her introduction, and especially in comparison with the other four Yonko, as she was the last Yonko introduced. She's the only female, as already mentioned, and she was introduced as a threat straight away with her first like mention, which was after the time skip in chapter 651, right at the end of the Fishman Island arc, when we first actually have an encounter with her. She's instantly like portrayed as being a threat. Why is she called Big Mom? Well, first off, she's like 29 feet tall. Yeah, like really big. Whitebeard, for comparison, is 20 feet tall, so she's huge. Yeah, like add another like couple feet for scale, and she'd be five of me standing on top of each other, and I'm quite a tall person. Uh, and when she gets annoyed during the Onigashima arc, just a couple of chapters ago, she was able to make herself actually physically grow to like an indeterminate size by using her devil fruit and expending lifespan. But she's like pretty fucking big, we'll say. Also, when she got closer to the age she is currently in the series, she became like significantly overweight because she eats everything, and that's like part of her character. She eats everything. She's like a force of nature. Nothing can stop her once she has like a hunger pang. Another aspect of big. And like the main body of her crew, how she gets the mom aspect of it. The main body of her crew is made up of her children, of which she has 85. Like, honestly, I think you could count them as like a full generation of Pokemon if Game Freak were like strapped for ideas at some point for a future generation, and they'd still be bigger than Pokemon Gen X and Y's, Gen 6, yeah, X and Y's, all the new Pokemon added in that generation. It would be more than that. She also wields the Sorcerer no Mi, which I should mention now. It's the Soul fruit. It provides her with like loads of powers that she can use to like get over on others, I suppose. And we'll talk about that more in a while. With that like introduction of who Big Mom is out of the way, it's time to get into like the more analysis part of the video. So let's go. So our first introduction to Big Mom doesn't actually feature her appearance at all, like in person. At this point in the story, we are well aware of the Yonko, and because as I mentioned earlier, she is the final Yonko that's like mentioned in the story. Like our first introduction to Big Mom is at the end of the Fishman Island arc, but specifically we get her mentioned at the start of the arc where we find out that after Whitebeard's death in the Marineford War, uh, Big Mom came to Fishman Island, or she sent her emissaries or whatever to Fishman Island, offering her protection in exchange for candy. Yeah, that's pretty weird, but put a pin in it. You know, put a pin in the whole candy thing because we'll get back to it. And obviously, if Big Mom is able to protect the island just by having her flag there, that clearly kind of shows, just based off her first bit of reputation, that she's obviously like a very strong threat, that she doesn't even need to be near there and no one will attack the island because Big Mom's flag is there. The next encounter we have with her is at the end of the arc, as I mentioned before, when Monsieur Tamago, and Peckhams come to collect the candy payment from Fishman Island for the arc, or for the month. And unfortunately, Luffy's kind of like eaten all of the candy at this point the night before in a celebration of beating the new Fishman pirates. So, like, this is how we get our first encounter between Luffy and Big Mom. They actually have a phone call, and she's kind of like shown in silhouette, but she's like huge, and for scale, I think it's one of her kids is sitting on their knees in front of her, and they're tiny next to her, and like it's clear that her reputation precedes her as well, because when Luffy's talking on the phone to her, obviously Luffy, being the character he is, isn't like respectful to her at all. He doesn't care, and everyone around her, everyone around him, is kind of like, oh my god, and they're freaking out based off of just what he's saying on the phone to her. And you can see they are genuinely terrified by her. So she clearly has this reputation as like a very scary, strong person. Also, it gets mentioned that she literally destroyed an entire island recently just for not paying her in candy for the month. So that's like the scale that she's at in terms of actual power. And like the reputation definitely matches the power level, because like it's clearly like way beyond Luffy or any of the Straw Hats, and that's represented. We don't find this out until the Wano arc, but her bounty at this point in the story is actually 11 times Luffy's bounty, and it's like 5.5 times the entire Straw Hat crew's bounty combined at this point in the story. And it clearly shows how people would react to someone disrespecting like that reputation and the person who holds that reputation, when they can easily destroy an entire place. And Luffy will be fine, but the people who actually live in that place would obviously be in danger as a result of that. And but then we get like nothing of her reputation until the whole Cake Island arc. I know some people might mention that in Dressrosa, when Sanji and a couple of the others head off to Zou, they do get attacked by a Big Mom ship, and Sanji has to ask Luffy permission to attack them back. But other than that, there is no mention of her until Whole Cake Island. And this is where we get the like brunt of her reputation and like how people view her and stuff, obviously, because as Luffy's infiltrating her territory, like you can tell she's a looming threat on the horizon. She's like building up until their first encounter. We get to see like how she has the reputation she has, and why people were terrified of Luffy talking to her the way he did in Fishman Island on the phone. uh like by the time they have an encounter with her, like we're aware that she's able to steal other people's lifespan. Even Caesar Clown from Punk Hazard, who literally experimented on kids and has no morals at all. He's a horrible character. He's an entertaining character, but he's a horrible person. Like, he's terrified of her and what she'll do to him if she catches him. And so obviously, if Caesar Clown is terrified of her, she must be terrifying. And then during the middle of the arc, before we even reach her, Luffy has probably the hardest fight he's ever had in the story up to this point against Cracker, who is her child and her third rank commander. So, like, she's probably, you know, if they're their third rank commander, she's probably like exponentially stronger than them. And so, like, I hear you asking, like, what went wrong after the build up of reputation that we got with her up to this point. Well, the answer is she got introduced in person, which is the big problem. Why did Big Mom's introduction cause everything to go wrong then? First off, before we get into this, I'm just going to say her introduction and like how she was portrayed in Wano, are up until Wano specifically, are actually very good in my opinion. They are She is genuinely threatening, she is terrifying. I think it's more in Wano that we have problems, but I do think there are a couple of problems from the start that kind of exacerbate throughout it, you know? So, like, through her backstory, which is very well written, she's, like, shown as being a walking disaster, like, destroying an Elbaf village as a child, not even a giant child, just a regular child, which led to her long time beef with the giants, whereby she's, like, not allowed no one's allowed mention giants around her. And it also set up her isolation, which led to the birthday party incident where she decided to have a snack, uh, and which led to her getting the Sora Sora no Mi and being alone, so Streisand could find her. And there's the first kind of hurdle that she, as a character, trips over and falls flat on her face with. It's, you know, Streisand, which opens up her like character to being disliked by the community, I think. So, like, Streisand kind of uses Big Mom and turns her into a pirate, meaning she doesn't really, like, originally, as a, like, when she's starting out, she doesn't actually have any motivation for being a pirate herself. It's just a man pointing her in that direction. Uh, like, she was aimed at it by Streisand, and who, like, in the modern story is still next to her at all times. He's at the tea party, he's at the wedding, everything. It's just not good. And he's kind of like always there, you know. And but do I think that he's like some kind of permanent like puppet master that's like manipulating her into doing everything? No. I don't. I genuinely don't. I think that like Big Mom is like a force of nature unto herself in the modern story, whereby like if she sets her mind to something, no one can stop her. Well, nearly no one. But it is kind of like a bad look, you know, that like her basic motivation for what she's doing is basically just a man told her to do it. Especially when you're the only female Yonko, like it's really bad. Uh, like it makes it look like the only female Yonko could never have gotten there without a man to guide her, you know. Uh, and it's only her that has this as well. Like Whitebeard becomes a pirate because he wants a family. Kaido, we don't know yet, but we can assume it's to do with him seeing Rock's Zebek and being inspired, which is different from what Big Mom and Streisand have because it's less direct. She kind of like has other unfortunate aspects as well. So like with Shanks being like the regular Yonko, and Kaido being like the monster, and then Blackbeard being the one with two devil fruits, that's like the looming threat for Luffy at the end of the story. Uh, who's like the parallel character, you know, shown in tropes. Big Mom kind of rolled the unlucky role of being the comedic relief Yonko, and this is also a major reason, like that I think that you could say that her character was like dead on arrival. Like her own arc features stuff like her doing musical numbers and getting literally in Wano, she literally gets rolled over by Frankie on a bike, which we will talk about in a while. But even through all of this, like she is still a major threat in Whole Cake Island. The entire plan to assassinate her going wrong, and nearly half the 80 chapter arc being dedicated to the few Straw Hats who went on the mission, just trying to escape her territory, was really like the perfect way to build up her character, even if a lot of people dislike that because they think that the chase dragged on too long. Uh, like it really sets it up that like the final enemy of the arc for the Straw Hats isn't even Big Mom, it's one of her kids. It's Katakuri, you know, who a lot of people do think is one of the best villains in the series. I'd agree, but it really shows the level that Big Mom is at, that they like they can't even face her at that point in time. And escaping her territory is literally enough for Luffy to be named a Yonko. Well, the fifth Yonko, which you know technically Goko at that point, I guess. But anyway, well, that's not the point of the video. Uh, and like the only way to stop her from chasing them for even enough time for them to escape is just Sanji being the best chef in the world. Like that was the only way to stop it. And this really shows that like she can be a major threat when Oda wants her to be, even going as far as to like pursue the Straw Hats to Wano, like and into the next arc, which is, you know, besides like your Blackbeard and your world government, she's the first villain who like carries over into the next arc after her own arc. Uh, Obviously, like out of a couple who you could name, none of them really carry over directly into it as a villain. We still aren't to that yet, but like remember when I said that like the Straw Hats aren't on our levels? So in the entirety of Whole Cake Island, when they try to assassinate her with Capone Beige's crew, and you know they do everything they can to escape her, even going as far as to try to just knock her away from the ship and everything. The total amount of damage she actually suffers in that entire thing is a scraped knee. Like, yeah, the only thing that actually hurts her is scraping her knee. And she escapes the arc being like a true threat to the Straw Hats going forward and a threatening entity. Like, the only thing that really punctured her being threatening in the entire Whole Cake Island arc was like Jinbei showing that like her powers don't work on you in terms of like life stealing and stuff as long as you aren't afraid of her. But then when you have such a terrifying reputation as she has, where only like a number of people, like you could probably name them on one hand, well, not one hand, a couple hands, uh, who aren't afraid of her. It's basically just like the Yonko, the supernovas and the Straw Hats, and maybe a couple of Marines like the Admirals, uh, her powers will work as a result of that on basically everyone on the planet. So, like, what went wrong with her character in Wano that is making me make this video? Well, yeah, the Wano arc, as mentioned, is what caused it. While I do love the Wano arc, it's probably one of my favorite arcs in the series, and possible arc ranking video coming soon. It undeniably killed Big Mom's character in like 3 easy steps, no less. Yeah, so how to kill a compelling character? Authors hate this. Namely, through the amnesia plot and the Olin's mind state, so like her alternate character of Olin, followed by the removal of her threatening nature, and finally by introducing mothering mode, which all kind of feed into each other. So when Big Mom first made it to Wano, she got amnesia as a result of her crew being knocked off a waterfall and her washing up on the actual island. It kind of reverted her into her like childlike state where she was very caring for others. So this essentially like removed the threat of Big Mom because it was like she was just kind of a gentle giant, and it kind of shows that her actual natural state is this state, and then like all the terrifyingness and everything is like her being changed to that by other people. So it's not even like her character, if that makes any bit of sense. Uh, and but even though like this was done quickly. Like in Act Two, she's already back to being Big Mom. The damage was kind of done already in the eyes of the community. Like she also went like full meme in this arc. Like while she was used for jokes a few times in Whole Cake Island, it basically became like 90% of her portrayal in Wano. Like from the amnesia plotline to Frankie literally rolling over her face with a motorbike. She got into so many encounters which disrespected her in major ways and gave her no recourse to recover from the disrespect. So the final nail in the coffin for her, in my opinion, was the introduction of mothering mode. So in the middle of the raid on Onigashima, Big Mom literally turns on Beast Pirates like the Toby Rappo members, Page One and Ulti, due to a never previously mentioned mindset where she, if she like sees a child in trouble, she'll attack whatever is causing the child to be in trouble. Now, I may hear you asking right now, like, why is that really a problem with the portrayal of a character whose name is Big Mom? Well, she never like showed this instinct with any of her actual children, no matter how young they were, which makes this particularly weird and pulled out of nowhere. Like there are points in the Whole Cake Island arc where it's like hinted that the children are basically like left to die as children, and like she never has any mothering mode with that, but all of a sudden with Tama, she has this thing where she like her brain stops working until she defends her. It's just there for the purpose of taking out Ulti in Page One because Nami and Usopp obviously didn't get a boost in power to do it for some reason. Oda decided to go the route of just having Big Mom take them out, and this is like the exact moment, in my opinion, that she philosophically died. And that means it's another time for a title transition. So let's go. We're here at the final part. Now, I haven't been in the One Piece community very long. In fact, Chapter 1000 was the first chapter I actually read as a new release. I had only gotten into anime a few months earlier than that, and it was kind of like I was during COVID lockdown here in Ireland. I was looking for something. I had watched everything I wanted to watch. I couldn't leave the house, and One Piece was a super long series because I had heard like it was at like episode 900 or something. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll watch that. And nearly every so like that's how I got into One Piece, and you know, I switched over to the manga pretty quickly afterwards. But obviously One Piece is super long, but so I have a very small like sample of my actual experience with it. But every time I see Big Mom mentioned online, it's been like heavily negative in feeling, and obviously that's only been since Onigashima. Uh, a lot of people do dislike her, and I think she is easily the least liked Yonko, unless if like you want to argue that Blackbeard is because people love to hate him or whatever, but that's still, they like the fact, like the point of his character is to be disliked. uh People point to like the comedic moments with her and like completely ignore the rest of her character, including all the moments she had which really stand to like how terrifying she is as a person to everyone except the Straw Hats. And obviously the story is told from the Straw Hat perspective, so that kind of messes it up a bit. But like people point to like Kaido knocking Luffy out while he's in Gear Fourth, and never acknowledge that Big Mom literally made Gear Fourth Luffy like run away and hide in Capone Beige in the Big Father mode or whatever it was called. And like she came out of that entire like encounter with just a scraped knee, as I mentioned. People ignore that up until the last few chapters in which Law and Kid have been fighting her. The scraped knee was the only bit of damage she had ever taken in the entire story. Uh, yeah. So what's my point? Well, like I believe the community has killed Big Mom's character before the story has even done it. Like I don't think she's dead as of chapter 1040, as I've already mentioned earlier in the video, but I think the community has basically written her off as dead, like nearly, you could argue, like 40 chapters ago, or about 30 chapters ago when Mothering Mode was introduced. Like, through focusing on, like, the negative aspects of her character, the community's, like, been reluctant to give any praise for her as a character, for anything she's done. Even, like, as a result of Mothering Mode taking down both Page 1 and Ulti in a single strike each, or having a majorly impressive fight with Law and Kid, which I don't think anyone's arguing. It is an impressive fight for both sides, where she basically couldn't be defeated by the two of them, like straight up, and had to be like defeated by technicality, by sumo rules, by knocking her off the island to knock her out. Or we don't even know if she's knocked out. She might fly back up. Doubtful, but she might fly back up after the war is over or something. What am I trying to say? And sorry about saying so much. It's just natural. So like I suppose I should wrap this video up now. Like I'm after being cut across with the conclusion title card, as you've seen, and like I suppose I should start wrapping this up and give a conclusion. So I think Big Mom is well written. I think she's a threatening character. I do think by virtue of attempting to have humanized her by having her given some comedic moments, Oda has like given her the opportunity to be hated on unduly by the One Piece community. Do I think that she's the best villain in One Piece history? No. I do think that Katakuri is actually a better written villain than her, even though he's less in the story than her. But I do think she is a great villain who has been like a looming threat in the world for hundreds of chapters. And even when she is at her worst moments with Mothering Mode, she is far superior to a lot of villains in a lot of other series. And I'm sure that in editing, I will, throw a couple of them across the screen here, and here. Just, I can't remember them at the moment because let's face it, a lot of villains are kind of not memorable in a lot of anime or manga. So as a result of the hate she faces, I do believe it is fair to say that, like, in terms of the original, Sakura Gandhi quote, here a look, Big Mom is, like, philosophically dead without even having died in real life in the story. And that's death of the author, baby. Oh yeah, I kind of lied when I said that the original quote was irrelevant. We're all tying it back together. It's like an Ouroboros. We're after circling back. And now I'm going to stop talking before the whole joke gets kind of awkward. Probably already is. So, anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please consider dropping a like. Please consider subscribing. I'm trying to reach 1 million subs by like the end of the day. So, if you have any disagreements or agreements in the video, please leave a comment and let me know. And subscribe, obviously, again. So, alright, that's the video. Thanks for watching. Peace.